Let's take a closer look at the cost of this slowdown to the U.S. economy. Some of those numbers are very big. These ports account for about 12.5% of U.S. economic output, with cargo worth around $1 trillion a year. It is estimated 70% of U.S. imports from Asia come through these ports. That is everything from toys to car parts. And the dispute is hurting the U.S. agriculture sector. As Sarah was saying, it's costing apple growers, meat and poultry suppliers millions of dollars in lost export trade every week. Chris Thornburg, the founding partner of Beacon Economics, joins us now from Los Angeles. Chris, it's great to see you. Ports are the kind of thing that we don't think much about when they're working well. It's only when something happens like this that we understand what an important artery they are. You heard some of the numbers, some of the estimates Sarah was talking about in terms of the hit to the U.S. economy. How severe is this? Can you quantify for us how much of a disruption this is going to be?
Well, yes and no. I mean, look, the numbers are very scary when you pose them that way, but I think the critical issue here to keep in mind is that while this is one of the most important routes of goods getting in and out of the United States, it is not the only route for goods getting in and out of the United States. Of course, we have the East Coast ports, there's ports in Mexico and ports in Canada, stuff can be transshipped through. And of course, in the end, if something's really, really necessary, you have a situation in which stuff can be flown back and forth. We have another very important airport systems here in Southern California as well that can move goods in and out. We've done studies of this in the past, and while there's no doubt that certain businesses are harmed, you've yet to see any kind of major aggregate impact on the U.S. economy or indeed industrial production. That's because businesses can mitigate, that is to say, for some of those essential parts or essential goods, they will route them around and find new ways of getting them in and out of the nation. So I know the numbers sound very scary, but really on net, this is more like a tax rather than any kind of major threat to the ongoing ability for the U.S. economy to continue to grow.
Well, that's certainly a relief, especially given all the other headwinds we worry about all the time. Chris, is this, when we talk about natural disasters or any kind of short-term event, we often see that activity sort of, snaps back or it's made up after the fact. How long of a window here are we talking about before it becomes impossible to do that and you do see, more costs at least built into businesses?
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, no one ever talks about just-in-time inventory anymore because we realized a long time ago just-in-time was way too fragile. Most companies have had months to prepare for this because, after all, these sort of labor issues have been simmering for months and months now. This is not coming as a big surprise to anybody. So my guess is most folks out there who are really dependent on the ports have at least a couple weeks of supply built up. And, of course, at the other end of it, if they have a couple weeks warning, they can start looking for those alternative routes for those really critical issues. Those really critical parts they might need, say, to keep the factory running or something like that. Mm-hmm. Now, again, I'm not just saying at all that there aren't some companies getting hurt. Remember that there are certain small companies that don't have the ability to reroute products very easily. And, of course, they may also have products tied up in port that are being, either those sales are being lost or worse, some of those products are going bad as a result of the fact that they're perishable. But on net, again, these situations tend to not have nearly the kind of dramatic impact as you might think.
I'm curious, Chris, and I don't know if you know the answer to this, but it's been a long time since we've seen strikes and the such. In the Great Recession, nobody was willing to stick their neck out. They were so afraid of job security. Yeah. They weren't willing to hit the picket lines at all. Do you think that this is representative of something that's changing in the labor market, a confidence that's coming back, or is this particular to this port and these workers?
I'm going to go a little bit more with the latter than overall. After all, we have to keep in mind that these poor workers are making probably 2 to 2.5 times what they would be making in the private sector. This labor force has a very protected position. But to your point, I think it's less about the overall state of the labor market. Remember, back in 2009, activity through those ports was very, very subdued as a result of the recession. It's just now that things are getting back to something that resembles full capacity. And, of course, when those ports are getting crowded, suddenly the ability to enact a slowdown and have a substantial impact on people getting stuff in and out, well, suddenly these unions have an ability to kind of twist the arm of the managers, if you will, the way they did a few years ago, and that really gives them the confidence to go out and do this.